Enoch here, and I build AI agents to automate client interaction for businesses on Botpress. Now, today I'll be sharing with you a system that I personally use in my chatbots to stop them getting stuck at different points throughout the conversation. When you build a dialogue-based chatbot for a client or for a business, the number one thing that you can never 100% predict is the user's message. What this means is that you can never 100% fill in the knowledge base with data and information that will always be adequate enough to answer any response, any message that the user sends through. Therefore, when your bot is not able to find the answer, not able to get the response or the knowledge to create that response to the user, it either gets stuck or it sends something silly in response to the user's message, neither of which we want to happen. So here's how you can fix that issue. So you can see that I'm here in the Botpress studio. I'm currently in the knowledge base section. I'll start by doing a demonstration of the system, and then I'll go ahead and show you how to build it and set it up. So you can see I have here a little rich text knowledge base document. It's for an animal home, so inside there's a bit of details about the different animals available at the animal home. So there's a few dogs, a few cats, a rabbit, and a guinea pig, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and start the conversation, and we will ask, for example, what dogs do you have? And then you'll notice that it goes ahead, queries the knowledge base, and then it's going to provide the dogs available. Buddy, Luna, Max, and Daisy. Buddy's a golden retriever, Luna's a border collie, Max is a chocolate Labrador retriever, and Daisy is a beagle. Great. So if I move on to asking the next question, let's ask about horses, because in the knowledge base there's no horses included. So if we say hi, then we say, what horses do you have? You'll see that it'll take a little longer to come up with a response, which tells us that it's not able to find the answer. See, no valid answer found. But then you can see it moves on to providing an adequate response rather than just leaving the user on nothing. So it says, I do not have the information about specific horses. However, I can transition to the next step now, which is just what it's told to do according to the system. It starts by letting them ask the question, and then from then on we move on to querying the question. After querying the question, we move on to checking whether it has found an answer for it or not, and if it has found the answer, well and good, we output the answer. If it has failed to find an answer, then we use an autonomous node to generate a response. So let me go ahead and build it for you. So let me just close this to get us started and zoom in. We can start at the entry point. We can start by inserting a message that the user would see to prompt them to ask a question. So for example, let's just go ahead and put ask your question. And then we can put a wait for input card, so that the bot waits for the user's next input. And then from then on, we transition to the next node, in which we will actually query the user's response. So first of all, you want to have created a variable to store the query result in. In this case, I've created a variable called kb_ans, knowledge base answer. And so in here, we will just have the query knowledge base card, and then we would query the user's last message, which is stored in the variable event.preview. So event.preview, there we go. And then it would store that in the kb_ans variable, and then we move on over here to this next part, which is really, really important. So you can see now I'm in the Botpress docs, botpress.com/docs, and then you can go to the variable section, and you'll notice that Botpress has these pre-built variables. The one we'll be using today is this one down here, turn.knowledgeAgent ?answer?length. As you can see here, it basically says the amount of characters in a knowledge answer. Use this in an expression to check if there is an answer in the KB, and that's precisely what we're doing. So we're back in. All we do is add an expression card to facilitate the transition feature. That's already added, and then we can remove this AI thing and instead put here turn.knowledgeAgent.answer.length, and then we want to add greater than 0. So what this means is that if it's able to, if the knowledge agent is able to get an answer and produce a response, the length of this variable will be greater than 0, therefore indicating that it has found an answer to the user's question in the knowledge base. However, if it fails to find an answer to the user's question, what it will do is it will not have anything in this variable. So this will be empty, it will be equal to 0, and therefore this condition will not be true, and so it will not flow in this direction. So now you can see we have two exit points that we can use from this node. The first one is going to be for if it found a response, in which case it would go up here. The second one is if it did not find a response, in which case it will go down here. So we can start with the one at the top. All we do is add the output. If you remember, we stored the output in the KB ants, the output from the query, and so we would just have to put that in here, workflow.kb ants, and it will output that accordingly. And then from there we can just exit, since we are building something very simple. So that's that part done in the case that it does find an answer. However, what if it does not find an answer? We want it to transition down here, and it will, but what do we want it to do? So at this point, it's honestly your option, your choice. You can do whatever you want. You can just output a plain text message that says, hey, I wasn't able to find an answer because I don't have this knowledge yet. Or you can use maybe an AI task to generate something a little more creative, or in the case, as you'll see right now, we'll be using an autonomous node, and I'll be telling it to just generate a random response to the user's message, which is also something that you can do. So the options are endless essentially, but you just have to figure out what you want to happen in the case that an answer is not found, so that instead of the bot getting stuck, that action that you chose happens and occurs to keep the conversation flowing forward. But in most cases, I'd recommend that you use an autonomous node, or you use another query, but that query is connected to a knowledge base that has access to the web, so that if it's not able to find the answer in the knowledge base that you've pre-built to it, it just searches for that answer on the web instead, which I found to be a really good solution to most problems. Anyways, if we go ahead in the instructions, we can just type generate a response to the user's message to keep the conversation flowing. And then the one key thing you have to remember if you use an autonomous node is you have to tell it to transition out immediately, because otherwise your user will get stuck in this test flow. I mean, in this query flow, meaning they will come in here, and because there's no way of them leaving this node, they will remain in this node and continue to converse with the bot in here, and therefore they will not get to the rest of the workflow in that they had originally come from, or the rest of the path that you had planned for them to take. So it's really important that they exit from this autonomous node, otherwise they won't go back to their original path after the question was answered. So what we do here is we can just add a transition card over here, and then in here we can just call this answered, and then in here we can say as soon as you've responded, transition immediately to the answered card below. There we go. And so as soon as it has generated that response, it will transition to this card, and then from this card we just transition to the exit, and there you go. That's the system done. So that's it. Very short, very quick. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one.